Hi, welcome friends to Multiverse's online ConSuite. Since the Kitchen Witch couldn't bring goodness to you this year, I'm having you join me in my little witchy kitchen to learn a little bit about tamales. Last year, tamales were the biggest hit of the ConSuite. We had sweet and savory, and they disappeared very quickly. So if you got one, I hope you enjoyed it. We are going to learn a little bit about how to make tamales, as well as two different recipes, both the sweet and the savory, that are different from what we had in the ConSuite last year, because if you want to learn about how to make those ones, you can just buy the Kitchen Witch Grimoire, How to Feed a Host of Magical People on a Budget by Aimee Andrichak, which you can order on Amazon or follow the link on my website. So let's talk a little bit about tamales. We have corn husks that we're going to use to wrap ours up today. You can also use banana leaves. If you can't find either of those in your local grocery store, you can definitely improvise. You can also order corn husks online because they're dry good and they ship very easily. So you should be pretty well set to start making your own tamales very soon. But first, make sure you've got a beverage of choice. It is a convention after all. All right, now I have one of my witchy little assistants here. And we are going to begin with the sweet tamale. So one of Lila's favorite desserts come Thanksgiving time is sweet potato pie. Definitely. Right. So instead of a sweet potato pie, we're making a sweet potato tamale. So basically what I have here are 2 cups of sweet potatoes that I peeled and boiled just like I would if I were making mashed potatoes or anything else. So they are completely soft and they're cooled to room temperature. You don't want to do this when they're super hot, because if you do, then it can just do weird things. It's not good. All right, so what we have going into this is going to be the vegetable oil here. We have 2 cups of this. We have 1 1/3 cup of vegetable oil. Now, I know some of you who are more familiar with tamales than everyone else might be very upset that we're using vegetable oil. Typically, the traditional tamale is made with lard. You know what lard is? It is animal fat. However, because what we here at Multiverse tried to do is make sure that everyone will be included, we changed it up a little bit. So we're using vegetable oil. You can use vegetable shortening, but I just found that vegetable oil works very well and keeps it moist. All right, so we have our vegetable oil. I'm gonna let you go ahead and start stirring this a little bit. It's going to take a little while to work it all together, so just kind of chunk it up a little bit. And we also have 2 cups of apple cider. This apple cider is actually one that I made when I stewed some apples, and you can absolutely buy the apple cider that is pre-made in the grocery store. You want to make sure that you buy an unfiltered one, because if you just end up with regular apple juice, it's going to be a little too sweet. So I'm going to add that in. It's got some good spices and chunky bits in the bottom. And we are mixing beautifully. Now for this, our sweet one, we have 1 cup of white refined sugar. We're going to add everything together, and then we're going to put the masa in last so that it can soak up all of these juices. We have here, how much? Yes, 1 teaspoon of cardamom. I want to make sure I gave you the right measurement. Cardamom is not typically your average pumpkin pie or sweet potato pie spice, but it works so beautifully and has such an aromatic flavor to it that I think you'll love that addition. Now we're also doing some molasses, which is sort of a byproduct of making sugar. It's a very dark and smoky flavor. It's one of the things, if you're familiar with like ginger cookies and spice breads and stuff like that, it's what usually makes them brown and delicious. Now we are going to add some fresh ginger. So here is a little trick that those of you who have watched the Food Network have probably seen before, but it is easily. So right before our batteries died, we were talking about ginger. Now, for those of you who have been doing a lot more online during the apocalypse, I don't know about you, but I think that technical difficulties is my new favorite swear word.
Definitely, 100%.
Exactly.
Agree.
So once you peel a little bit of your ginger with your spoon, which just comes right off, you don't lose any of the actual ginger that way. I have a little microplane here. You can use the small side of a box grater. You can pretty much do anything you want just to get tiny little bits, because what you don't want is someone to get a huge chunk of fresh ginger in their face. They will not enjoy that. So once you've got a little bit of that shaved off, like I do here, we can put it in our wonderful mix.
Smells so good.
Right? That fresh ginger smell. And the ginger can really be anything that you want it to be. Like as much as you want. It depends on how spicy your family likes it. My family can definitely take a lot of spice. If fresh ginger's a little too exciting for your family, it's totally okay to have, just a couple shavings. All right, so now that we've got that set up, we need to start adding the masa. And what we're going to do here, found it. So we're going to add 4 cups of the masa. And what masa is it's just extremely fine milled dried corn. So basically it is a corn flour that's super finely grained. So grits are ground corn, but they have those little chunky bits. And polenta is not quite as finely ground as masa. So what we have here is the finest of the finely ground corn. We're putting 4 cups in, but what we're going to do is put one at a time and incorporate it before we add the next one. Because otherwise you end up with a whole bunch of just chunky bits. It's a little better if it gets smooth. All right, good. So up from the bottom, kind of like you're folding it in a little bit, just so you get it incorporated beautifully. Well done. All right, there's 1. Here's 2. Now, measurements are often not exact when you're working with stuff like this, especially if you bake bread. I know a lot of people have started baking bread during the apocalypse that weren't baking bread before. So you might recognize this for yourself, but it might say, 4 cups of masa. Maybe you need to add that extra half cup at the end. Maybe if it's too thick, you need to add a little bit more of the apple cider. So you just kind of have to pay attention. Now it's getting a little thick, so I'm going to jump in here because I've got some, big mean stirring skills. So that was 3. And we are just going to throw 1 more in here and see. What you're looking for is a consistency that is a little bit softer than Play-Doh. So it's similar to a cookie consistency, like if you're making a sugar cookie, but just not quite that thick. And the reason why you don't want it to be too thick at this point is because that masa is going to start absorbing that flour. And if you put too much in it now and it gets super, super thick, and then it starts absorbing all of the flour's absorbing all the liquid, you're going to kind of end up with these dry corn sticks that are not. All right, so here we have the masa mixture for our sweet tamale. And we're going to go ahead and get started on the next filling. All right, so we're going to take a quick little break. I'm going to switch out my fabulous witchy assistants. I'm going to have a few more sips of my cocktail, and we'll be back with you in just a second. Oh, sorry. Pardon me. I'm just enjoying my convention. I hope you're enjoying your convention. We are making the filling for the savory tamales. And my new little witchy assistant is here because she is my most adventuresome eater. Ziva loves to try new things. And this might be new for a lot of you. We have something really interesting. It's called huela coche. Can you say huela coche? Perfect. And also, I know that I am probably mispronouncing it pretty badly also. You don't need to add me, I know. Okay. So what this wonderful dark magic is that a fungus sometimes gets inside of a corn plant as it's growing, and the little kernels that are like normally yellow or white poof up and turn like black because they have this cool mushroom type fungus growing inside it. So it is actually a mushroomy, corny, fungi flavor. Are you brave enough to try it? Yeah, it's good, right? I'm gonna try it too just because I like it. It's really interesting because you can buy it pre-made, pre-prepared, I should say. And it's basically in a jar and it's been cooked down with some vinegar and some spices and stuff. So this is not the raw form, but you can buy these in many of the Hispanic grocery stores, or you can also order online. So it's called huela coche, and I'll include a link so you can see what's happening. So we have 1 cup of that. And then we have 1.5 cups of black beans. We personally enjoy some black beans in this house. If you feel very strongly about kidney beans or navy beans or pinto beans or something else, you can absolutely switch it out. But it's also fun because the huela coche and the black beans are both very dark, so they kind of blend together really well. Now, the final ingredient for our filling is actually very well caramelized onions, okay? Do you see how brown those are? Take a whiff of that, right? It smells like heaven. So good. All right. The reason why I'm telling you very well caramelized onions is because people will lie to you. They will put in a recipe, oh, take 20 minutes to caramelize your onions. It does not take 20 minutes to caramelize an onion. It can take an hour. I think these cooked down for about 1.5 hours at a pretty low temperature, right? We were all taking turns stirring it while we were getting ready today. And the reason why it takes that long is because the sugars are breaking down. The actual little cells in an onion that make it crunchy have to pop, and then all the juices that are inside it have to cook out, and what you're left with are a lot of the sugars and less of the liquid. So that's the science behind it. But for some reason, people are always putting in their recipes, oh, just brown up some onions. It takes a while. Tamales are a labor of love. It's worth it. Also, you can do a whole bunch of these and then just freeze them. So whenever you need some, just pull them back out of the freezer. It's a really good tip, by the way. All right, so we're dumping these in, including the oil. I used a nice olive oil that I fried these in, or that I caramelized them in. So if there's any of that oil left, just throw it in there. It's full of flavor. Now, when I caramelized the onions, I gave them a generous sprinkling of salt. And when I cooked the black beans, I did the same. So that everything's pretty much already salted and flavored. And the huela coche already has all kinds of spice and magic in it. So basically, why don't you give that a little bit of a stir as well? We'll have a nice little look at it. All right, let me grab some spoons while you're stirring. We're gonna taste it and see what we think. Ready? All right, it's nice and dark. You can see that it's super delicious. Yeah? So the sweet onions really play with the flavor of like the fermented fungus and the wonderful like creaminess of the black beans. Those onions are so sweet, they're perfect. All right, this is our filling. We are going to go ahead and set up for the masa. We'll be right back. Welcome back, friends. We are currently preparing our sauces. Tamales as sort of a steamed pudding, steamed bread are often served with sauces. So since we have a sweet and a savory, we're going to make two sauces tonight. The first sauce is actually an apple butter. So I have 6 cups of applesauce here. This is pretty much if you take about 3 bags of apples and you throw them in your Instant Pot and let them cook and then mush them up, that's what you get. Or you can absolutely buy a couple of the large applesauce containers from the grocery store, not a big deal. So we're going to put our 6 cups of applesauce in our cauldron because we're gonna let this simmer for a nice long time. It's gonna simmer while our tamales are steaming. It gives it plenty of time to make your sauces. All right, now to sort of amp up our flavor of our apple butter, we have 1 tablespoon of vanilla. Now, I know that sounds shocking, but really, this is your opportunity, those of us who love that vanilla flavor, like crank it up. No one's judging you. Enjoy yourself. It'll be worth it. All right, the other thing that we're adding to make this particular apple butter different from your granny's apple butter, Chinese 5-spice. Right. So a 5-spice typically has like cloves and cinnamons and different types of peppers. And similar to how different families have different recipes for their curry, I have read dozens of recipes that call for different things in their Chinese 5-spice. Clearly there are 5 spices. So this recipe that I made for my 5-spice is actually Szechuan peppers, black peppers, cinnamon, cloves, and allspice. And I ground them all up together. It has a wonderful aroma, and the Szechuan peppers, it's an interesting kind of heat because it's called like a numbing heat, like it gives you this warm feeling in your mouth. And black pepper is familiar to a lot of people, obviously, but not always in desserts. So it really just adds this extra layer of just deliciousness. You'll be like, what is that? You're gonna be so popular. All right, now with our apple butter, we're going to add some orange zest, which is, I'm a huge fan of zesting pretty much anything, and some of the actual orange juice. Part of the reason why we do this is because when you're trying to make something that you want to be nice and thick, like a jam, you want to have pectin. The apples have a lot of pectin naturally, as do adding other things like the zest of an orange with all of its delicious oils and stuff, and the wonderful pectins and things, like all of the chunky bits of the orange. Anything can go in there except the seeds. And honestly, if you get a seed in, I'm not gonna judge you. All right, sorry, I went out of frame to throw that away because that's my habit. I'll try not to do that this time. Okay, so here we go with our next orange half. I'm literally just squeezing it into my hand because by doing that, I catch all of the goodies that I don't want in there. And that way you guys don't have to pick orange pith out of your teeth. It's a good plan. All right. And once you've got this all together, you're just gonna give it a little magical stir, and then you're going to pop it on your stovetop at a medium-low heat and just let it keep simmering. It really, as long as you stir it every 10, 15 minutes or so, it can keep going forever. It's gonna get darker and darker in color as those sugars caramelize, and the smell from that Chinese five spice is going to drive you crazy. It's gonna be great. All right, let me pop this on my stove. I will gladly turn that on in just a moment, but for right now, what I'm going to do is make our second sauce. So tamales, because they steam for so long, are, they're very rich, and I love having something fresh with them. So what I'm making is sort of a twist on a pico de gallo, but it's a little bit different. So what I have here is actually a cup of thinly julienned radishes. Now, a lot of people have feelings about radishes, and I respect that, but in Mexico, it's a very common topping for tacos or really anything. The wonderful thing about radishes is that they grow super quickly and they're drought resistant. So you find them in a lot of cuisines that are, where the concern about rain or making sure you can feed as many people as quickly as you can is important to them. So you find that radish flavor in a lot of different places. Now we have 2 cups of cilantro. If you don't like cilantro, I apologize, but it takes 2 cups of cilantro. And, I know people are like, it tastes like soap, and there's like some sort of a chemical thing that people are affected by. I respect that. You should make a difference also. So then we have a cup of finely diced onions. And if you use a sweet onion, like, I'm from Georgia, I believe in Vidalia's, it adds a little bit of a sweeter flavor. If they're not in season, you can absolutely use a white onion or a yellow onion. We're gonna put a lot of acid flavors in here, and it's gonna have a chance to sit for at least an hour and sort of mingle. So it's not gonna have the same raw onion flavor that you might be expecting. Now what I have is actually diced red pimentos, and this is our base of our sauce. You could absolutely use crushed tomatoes if you didn't want to go with peppers, or you could, you could dice them up yourself. Personally, I went on the easy route here. So what we have is a large 28-ounce can of diced red pimentos. And we're actually almost done with this sauce. And it's funny because those peppers smell so wonderful. And the fact that they're canned obviously means that they're cooked. So it brings sort of a softness and a richness to it. And because we're going to just now add some acid and some things that will sort of help macerate it a little bit, it's going to mask that canned flavor. So it's not going to taste like you just cracked open a tin and started eating. All right, we have 3 limes. If you feel like this is excessive, we may not be able to be friends. Personally, I think that limes are one of the best things in the world. The richness and the flavor is just very hard to match. And so we are here, you know what? All right, technical difficulties again. So my little microplan's not working. I'm gonna pause you for a moment. I'm gonna get one that works and I'll be right back. Hi friends, thanks for waiting. I had to clean up the one I used earlier instead of waiting to do dishes till the end. So honestly, you wanna just get as much of the wonderful lime zest as you can from all of these beautiful 3 limes, and we're going to squeeze the juice in there. That juice, try not to throw it at yourself. That juice is actually what's going to kind of cook the onions and keep them from having this excessively raw flavor while still being crispy and delicious. It's sort of like how ceviche is made. Acid starts to break things down and soften things up, and it will make it super extra delicious. All right, so here is my first beautiful zest of lime. And I am going to juice this guy right here. Now you can do this by hand too, like I did with the oranges. Personally, I like my little squeezer because I feel like I get every ounce of juice out of it as possible. If you don't have one, just squeeze it by hand. Make sure you squeeze it into your other hand so you catch all of the goodies that you don't want inside your pico de gallo, which actually means like choice of the rooster. And it's such an interesting word, don't you think? All the good things the rooster would eat if he got into your garden. All right, now I am going to zest and juice the other 2 limes, but I'm not going to make you watch me because it just takes time. I'm going to give it a healthy sprinkling of salt, but keeping in mind that the peppers were canned, there's actually a little bit of salt in there already. And I tend to go lighter on salt than some people, so add as much as you feel like you need. And there we go. All right, I'm gonna add these 2 little bad boys in, and then this guy's gonna be done and ready for our tamales. Hello again, friends. Now, let me just say, I forgot to tell you to save your limes after you squeeze them out. The little old abuela that I learned this trick from, not my abuela, but a good friend, taught me something super special. First of all, these guys, drop them right in the cocktail. And then the rest of them, you want to go ahead and put into your pots, your wonderful little steaming cauldron. The reason why is you're adding an extra depth of flavor as the delicious things that you add in steam into your wonderful tamales. It does add so much richness and flavor. Now, if you're using a big cauldron, like myself, you want to make sure that you have one of these guys. It is a steamer basket. There are very many, but this one's mine. You can choose any kind of steamer basket. I've seen bamboo ones, whatever works for your cauldron. And then this is going to be the one that is our savory choices. And it's going to get all these limes because as the steam goes through them, it's going to just soak into those tamales. I'm also going to chop up an orange because we want to add just that extra depth of flavor. It's going to give it so much, that hint of like citrus oils. And I'm just putting those right into this steamer basket. Now, here's one of my favorite tricks. It's a clove of garlic, right? We all love garlic. Well, I'm married to an Italian. We love garlic in my house. Maybe not you, but whatever. I'm just chopping this off, the top little bit and the bottom little bit, and I'm gonna sit it in here and stand it up. When you are done steaming your tamales, pull that little baby out because well gooey steamed garlic goes on everything. So you want to add a couple, 3, 12, however many garlic bulbs are right for you. That garlic smell is going to get right into the tamale and it's going to be incredible. Now for the sweet tamales, what we're adding is a little bit different. Here I have a super cool steamer pot. It actually has the steamer insert. All of the good water and juju goes in the bottom, and then the tamale stacked right on top of it. These are also wonderful. So that little piece of ginger that we didn't finish grating is going to get chopped up, dropped right in the bottom. These are like giant Mexican cinnamon sticks. They come in, I've seen them huge ones. They're just gorgeous. Make sure you get something that still smells really good. Like if you get it home from the store and it doesn't have a lot of scent to it, then the oils are probably evaporated and it's not going to give you the same reaction as like very smelly, delicious cinnamon. So once again, we're going to chop some oranges up because, as you recall, I'm sure there's some orange in the sauce that's going to be so good. So we're just giving that flavor a little extra boost. And once you put these guys in, you're going to be ready to start wrapping up those tamales. Let's do this. Hi, welcome back, friends. We are making the masa mixture for our savory tamales. So basically, tamales are all about the ratios. You use 4 cups of the masa flour, 2 cups of liquid, to about a 1 1/3 cup of oil, or about a cup of lard or shortening. We are using the oil just because here at Multiverse, we try to include everyone, and it's a little bit more simple to make sure that you have a nice, clean, healthy oil than trying to find a shortening or lard. These are vegan as well as gluten-free. Just a reminder, so they are super easy for a party. Everyone can eat them almost. And also, feel free to add cheese. Throw some sour cream on that. Mix it up. It's all about you. So what we're going to do today right now is make the broth for our tamale masa. And what we're going to do actually is a very fun trick. These are the cilantro stems that are left over right here. Try not to drop them on the floor. From when we chopped up some of the cilantro to make the sauce that we're going to make later. I saved these little stems because they are so full of flavor that people are a little weirded out by just, no one wants to just eat a stick. But because they're so soft and they're so full of flavor, they work wonderful in sauces. Now, to add a little something exciting to it, we're going to put in 1 whole onion that's been chopped up. And now we are going to process that nice and smooth. For those of you who, wait, how does that work? Really? Wait. Technical difficulties once again. This is totally my thing, and I can't figure out what's happening here. Okay, you may have to pause it for a second. We're gonna pause while I figure out what the problem is. Thanks. Welcome back, friends. As you can see, I have handled my technical difficulties. I have fixed my Cuisinart with a clothespin because sometimes you just have to do what you gotta do, right? So anyway, here we go. We had onions and cilantro in this magical little bad boy, and now we're gonna make it nice and smooth. Really, that was funny. There it goes. Now, the best way to get these nice and smooth is first you want to chop them as finely as you can in your Cuisinart, and then we're going to drizzle about 2 cups. Ding! We're going to drizzle about 2 cups of the, this is just a vegetable broth that I made myself. You can buy it out of a box. You can make your own. Like, I'm not going to judge your vegetable broth. So we're going to pour a little bit in and then give it another zhuzh. Now we're seeing it. Yeah, we'll cut that bit out. Sorry. Now we're seeing it get a lot softer and smushier, and we're going to pour the rest of our 2 cups of vegetable broth right in there. Now, if you are not trying to stay vegan for this recipe, you could absolutely use like a beef broth or a chicken broth or whatever your favorites are. And now that we have done all of the zhuzhing, it is nice and like, oops, except for that piece. That piece is fine. We didn't need that piece anyway. Now that it's all mixed up, we've got this wonderful, lovely green, deliciousness. Now, this is going to make more than 2 cups, but we only need 2 cups for this recipe. So what we're going to do here, technical difficulties. Oh, here it is. Wait, no, I'm good. I got it. Thanks. My wonderful mason jar measuring cup. All right. So what we're going to do here is put about 2 cups of this in. And like I said, because we're working with ratios, if it's a little too moist, you get to add a little bit more of the masa. If it's a little too dry, add a little bit more of your new wonderful broth. We are going to save what's left here and use it in our sauce in a few minutes. So don't get rid of it. It's delicious. All right, so now that we have our bowl full of green goodness, we're going to put our 1 1/3 cup of oil. We used a nice clear vegetable oil. You could use a canola oil. You could certainly use whatever your favorite oils are. Something light, don't go with olive oil or something that will overpower it with the flavor. But you could absolutely use grapeseed oil or canola oil or, avocado oil or whatever fabulous hippie thing you like. Go for it. All right, so now here's a fun story. This is my first cooking show. I forgot to tell you something before. We are adding 2 teaspoonfuls of baking powder to our masa mix. I had to do that off camera because I forgot to do it while you were watching me, but trust me, it went in, okay? So I'm doing it now. See, here it is. Look, it's like I knew what I was doing. Now, for my family, we like a little spice. So I'm putting in a tablespoon of crushed red pepper. Now, if you are not a big into spice, then you don't have to use this at all. And you can also modify it. Also, chipotle powder would be wonderful, or a nice dark paprika. You can totally play with that. And now we're going to start mixing in our masa 1 cup at a time. All right, so here goes 1 cup. And you just want to stir it in until it's incorporated and then add the next cup. Because what happens if you dump it all in together is you get really, really, really clumpy, and you end up, when you steam your tamales, you get these dry pockets that are neither a pleasant mouthfeel or delicious. So don't do that. So we'll take some more. This is number 2 1/4. Measurements are, not my thing. Typically, I do this by feel now. I've gotten to the point where I tend to just throw stuff in a bowl and see what happens, but I'm trying to make sure that I'm measuring it for you today. Once you've done this a few times, it's really amazing how quickly it feels like you know what you're doing. Oh, it's a little bit crumbly. Let me add some moisture. Oh, it's a little too soupy. Let me throw some in. It really does just become part of your cooking repertoire. And it's a very simple way to go. It is a labor of love. It takes time. Not only does it take time to actually make it and then wrap it and everything else, it's actually just one of those wonderful ways that you can show people how much you care about them. A tamale is clearly an act of love. So here we go with our last little bit. I am completely feeling like it needs a tiny splash of our liquid just to make it perfect. And once I am super happy that it is lovely and moist, and I'm going to let it soak up all these juices for just a little bit, and we're going to be wrapping these up in just a few moments. All right, so now that we've got this set, I'm going to go find my next little witchy support person, and we will start wrapping up tamales.
3, 2, 1, start!
Welcome back. This is my youngest little witchy helper. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, my name's Jack.
Your name is Jax. That's right. Jax does love to wrap up a tamale because here in Andrichak, we often make these things, right? Have you done this before?
Yes, but it took very long, so I got tired and I wanted it so right there.
So, yes, it took a while and he got tired and I finished. True facts. All right, so buddy, what we're going to do here, these ones are super special because they don't have the filling, okay? So we just put them into, do you remember what this is called?
No.
It's called a corn husk. Our corn husks have been soaking for a few hours in warm water to make them nice and soft. Also, if you need to keep a preschooler or kindergartner busy during this process, give them a steamer basket. It works wonders. Okay, so because this magical tamale doesn't have a filling, we're just going to put a little rectangle of it right there. We're going to flip up the bottom. You remember this part?
Yeah.
What do we do now? What do we do? Do we flip this down?
Yeah.
And then what happens? We do that. That's right. Can you do this side? That's right.
Yeah. Smash.
And perfection.
Nice.
The 5-year-old says you should give it a little smack. Feel free.
Feel
All right.
free.
Now, what I have done with these little pieces is I have created. Look, our friends are trying to listen to mommy. Can we be quiet for just a minute? Please. Thank you. So in order to make the little ties for this, what I've done here is I've just taken one of these beautiful soaked corn husks and then just torn them into strips to make little ribbons so that I can tie it closed. Okay, so this one's super easy, but what we're going to do is have you guys move in for a close-up so that I can show you the savory ones, which have a couple extra steps. Sure that you got it. I am scooping up this wonderful tamale mixture here. Now, what we're looking for is a roughly triangular shape. When you are making your tamales, a stuffed tamale where there's stuff in the center is often a little more dry so you can wrap it around. But the dessert tamales, I like to make nice and soft. So if you look at this, when you touch it, you can see how shiny it gets. It's like super, super soft and delicious, okay? So how we wrap it up is we fold one side up from the bottom and one side down from the top. And now we can flip one side over and you're kind of rolling it like a burrito, right? And once you get it rolled over, you want to make it as tight as you can just so that there's not a lot of chance that it's going to leak out. Now these little strips that we ripped apart before to make strings are what we're going to use to tie it. Stick in there. Now, one of my favorite things about tamales is that tamale making is an exercise in problem solving, because once you get into working with these very natural materials, like, things do not go the way you think that they're going to go, and you have to learn. So here I have, you can see it's nice and tight here. It's loose in the front, but that's okay because that's where it's got several different layers. So when I set it in the steaming basket like this, nothing's falling out the bottom. Nothing is going to explode out the top. It's going to give it a nice, tense, tight place in which to soak up all of the steam and the juices and turn into a magical, wonderful pudding. So this is it. And now I'm going to set up for the savory one. All right, now we're going to start wrapping up some of the savory ones, and you'll see that there's a few more steps, obviously, because there are a few more ingredients. Now, the savory is just a little bit stiffer in the dough, okay? And part of the reason why is because when you smush it down like this, it gives you a way to roll it into itself with the filling, so that you don't end up with just kind of a glump, which is exactly what you want in a dessert, but not what you're looking for here. So what we have is, I have made a lovely little rectangle of our tamale masa mix, and here, just a small amount, maybe 1 or 2 tablespoons, depending on how you want to roll it, just a thin line of our stuffing. Now, this is why tamales are an act of love, because it takes a little bit of work. What I'm doing is I'm picking up the corn husks and rolling it over the top like that on one side. And then I'm going to do it again on the other side, so that we're kind of encasing all that veggie goodness. Now, for example, right here, I missed a little bit of covering something. So you can add a little something. No one will know once it steams. Now, the wrapping is pretty much the same. We're going up from the bottom, down from the top, getting it nice and tight. So you see how there's not a lot of play there. That's a nice tight seal. And then rolling it over. Now, you will find that sometimes when you rip off one of these wonderful corn husk pieces, it's too short. You can tie a couple of them together. You can tie your tamale in 6 places if you're feeling a little anxious about it leaking, and that's okay too. But a well-wrapped tamale looks just about like that. It's nice and tight. You can hear it when you thump it, and that is how you wrap a tamale. So what we're doing here is we are standing them up next to each other. There's about a quart of water in the bottom of the pot between the steamer basket and the regular pot. All of our cinnamon and oranges and ginger and all the good stuff is down there in the bottom. We just want to make sure none of these get up so high that they're going to hold the lid up, because we want to get a good layer of steam. Now, if you've got the ones in the bottom setting straight up, you can totally stick a few more in a layer around the top. Also, if they don't all fit, that's okay. You'll just have to do another pot or another steam basket, like whatever you need to do. Like, for example, this one is a little big, so I'm just gonna be like, never happened, right? That never happened. And because tamales are the perfect problem-solving education tool, you just figure out how to make it work, however it works. And in this case, we have it done. We're going to put it on the fire and put a lid on it. And now we're going to lift it up to a simmer and let it simmer for about an hour and a half. And once that's done, it allows the masa to really absorb all of the liquids, both in the steam as well as the liquids we added into the mix. And what happens is it turns into this amazing steamed bread with stuff inside, which all right, we had some technical difficulties, so I'm not exactly sure where I was when we cut out. So let me just tell you that once you have stacked them all magically in here, they are going to simmer. You're going to bring it up to a simmer over like medium-low heat for about an hour and a half. And that allows all of the masa to really absorb the moisture and all of the goodness inside. And it also solidifies them into what is really a very like dense and flavorful cornbread with goodness inside. So that's what we're about to do here. And we've got a few more tamales to roll. All right, so we have steamed our tamales for about an hour and a half on a very slow steam bath, tightly covered with lids. And what we have now is this wonderful steamed bread texture. Now we have the sauce that we made together. I've added a little bit of sour cream. If you would like to stay away from the dairy products, you could absolutely use any vegan alternative to cream. But I do like a little bit of cream with mine. All right, let's do this. A little bit of that sauce. Scoop up some sour cream. Make sure we have some filling. Here we go. That is so wonderful. The masa has a lot more flavor than your typical tamale. It's not traditional, but it is delicious. The salsa came out, especially after having about an hour and a half to macerate and let the flavors just blend together. The lime cooked the onions enough so that they don't feel raw, and that little extra bite of cream just makes it. So I can't wait to finish this. But, you know, it's a show. I'm gonna go ahead and skip to dessert now. Now, with my sweet potato tamale, with the apple butter, we cooked the apple butter until it reduced to about half the quantity that it started out as. So it's extra soft and juicy. I've added some whipped cream. There are many different wonderful whipped creams that are coconut based or almond milk based, so find one that you like. Personally, I feel like a little fresh squeeze of lemon on my desserts always makes everything just a little better. That extra little kick of acid just makes me happy. So let's have the perfect bite again, shall we? A little bit of the sauce, a little bit of the cream, some sweet potato with a little lemon squeeze. Mmm. Mmm. It's so amazing how it's a mixture of like a corn pudding and a sweet potato pie, and the cardamom in it gives it this very distinct flavor that you're just like, what is that? That's so intriguing. Oh my gosh, I can't wait until my kids eat this. We are going to have the best dinner ever. And so on that note, I would like to say thank you all for joining us here in the Kitchen Witch's Witchy Kitchen, all the way over here in Andrichak, Pennsylvania. And we can't wait until we can bring the food to you at next year's Multiverse ConSuite. I love you all. Mwah! Bye! Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you had as much fun watching our video as we had making it. And in case you're wondering what we did with all of those tamales out of those 2 cauldrons, we actually packaged them up and sent them out on the Kitchen Witch Food Train, which is a program my family and I are running to try and help feed as many people in need as possible during these difficult times. If you want more information about that, or you'd like to follow along and see just what kind of magical things we're up to, you can check out my website at mamamakercook.com. You can also find a link there to the Kitchen Witch Grimoire, How to Feed a Host of Magical People on a Budget, which is the cookbook I published with all of the recipes from last year's ConSuite. So all of you who are wondering where you can find recipes for your favorites, now you know where to go. Thank you so much, and I hope this has helped you put a little bit of magic into your kitchen too. All right, Jax, what do you have to say to our friends?
Wait, Kitchen Witch video.
Great Kitchen Witch video. Do you feel good about it? Do you feel good about it? Can I have a kiss?